Greetings and welcome to an LGR thing, and today's thing is the Texelec Resound OPL3 8-bit ISA sound card, released in February of 2018 and currently costing $77.99. So yep, this is yet another newly made retro sound card with AdLib compatibility. That itself is nothing new, there are several good AdLib clones floating around these days, but the Resound has one heck of a neat gimmick that sets it apart. This not only uses the OPL3 sound chip instead of an OPL2, this is the sound chip that was really popular with tons of early 90s sound cards like the Sound Blaster 16 and compatibles, but it also introduces, get this, 4 channels of OPL3 sound. That's right, surround sound AdLib is technically possible. And before we go any further, this is not a sponsored video and they didn't give this to me for free or anything, I just bought it and I happen to like it, so let's talk about it. For one thing, I just enjoy the visual design of this card. It's a very striking look and it's clean looking, and there's a few items on it that stand out from your normal AdLib clone kind of thing. First off is this dip switch bank here for changing the base I/O address from the AdLib's default of 388H. At this point there's really not much reason to ever want to change this, but the option is there in case you do. It also has a set of line level input pins up here, acting as an auxiliary input in case you want to daisy chain other sound devices. And you see all these red blocky things here, these are Wyma film capacitors, which it uses instead of your normal electrolytics, which are paired with some input and output decoupling capacitors to try and block DC noise in the audio path to get a much cleaner sounding output. It also has its own 14.31818 MHz oscillator instead of just relying on the ISA bus of whatever PC you install it in. This is done to prevent any pitch changing on select older machines with differing bus speeds than maybe the AdLib or the game expects. And of course, you have two 3.5mm audio outputs, one for the front left and right speakers and the other for the rear left and right. And being that this is an AdLib compatible kind of thing, the installation is quite simple. As long as you have a free 8-bit ISA slot, you're good. But for the games I want to play, I like using it on 486 machines like this Unisys CWD 4002. I'm installing this one in right here. And that's it for basic usage. You don't have to set up any drivers or software. If an old game is going to look for AdLib, it's going to look for 388H, which is what this uses. So let's hit up a few of the pros of the device straight away. And for one thing, there is no emulation. As I mentioned earlier, this is a proper FM synth on board, a Yamaha YMF262 OPL3 sound chip. Not only is it a great chip, but it has really clean output on this card. Probably the best I've heard from any sound card with an OPL3 chip. Seriously, it's dead silent if there's nothing playing, and all the games I tried sound just as they should. Listen to some of this stuff and enjoy. Then there's the surround sound mode, which just amuses me to no end that it exists. Apparently while designing the card and researching the OPL3 datasheet, they noticed a feature which does not seem to have ever been implemented on a commercial sound card back in the day, which is that on the OPL3 chip there were 2 more channels beyond the usual 2 for stereo that are supported straight from the factory. And it is worth noting that this is different than what the surround sound module did with the AdLib Gold card in 1992. that simply layered some reverb and echo effects on top of existing games and added simulated stereo depth to a few games that supported that, but that did not have any output for separate additional sound channels and rear speakers like the Resound does. Now, at this point, there are no games or really anything that supports it except this one demo program that comes with the sound card itself from Texelec. But hey, it's there, so you can get your normal speakers, plug those into the front, and then two more speakers, like you just have some random ones here, we're going to put behind the camera. This is not a surround sound video, so it's only in stereo. It's not going to be the best example, but yeah, just listen to this. Yeah, there are 4 distinct channels all around you with ad-lib sound coming out of it. That's just so cool to me. I hope that somebody does something with this in the future, and that's really the whole idea of this feature of the card. Put the hardware out there and then hope that somebody in the homebrew scene does something with it, and I really hope someone does, because I want to hear more things coming through an OPL3 chip all around me. It does have some cons at the moment, and this is the 1.1 version of the card, and hopefully some of these things will change in the future. But one of the biggest ones is that you cannot adjust the volume, either on the card or through software, and this is kind of an issue because games with FM Synth and ad-lib support are loud and then soft and everywhere in between. I mean, just look at this line-out recording of these different games. They're just all over the place as far as their levels, and some of them do peak a little bit, or some are just really, really quiet. So unless the game allows you to adjust it through software, you're kind of out of luck, and you've just got to rely on external audio adjustment at this point in time, like some good speakers or your amplifier, something like that. But the bigger issue for me is that actually making full use of its OPL3 capability is unpredictable at best. The way you normally get OPL3 support in games is by setting it up to directly address a supported device, usually something like the Sound Blaster Pro 2 or Sound Blaster 16. The problem is that doing this with the Resound card typically won't provide anything but an error message. I'm not saying I expected this to work, I'm just pointing out one of the inherent issues in making a card with this approach. Considering there was never a standalone OPL3 only card like this manufactured back in the day, it makes sense that games don't always look for the YMF262 directly and might rely on detecting some component or a TSR or something else this card doesn't have. As a result, with games like Dune and Theme Hospital, you're stuck with OPL2 support for the time being, even though games like this technically are able to support the more advanced OPL3 features that this card has. Now that's just with DOS, though. Windows 95 and 98 are a bit of a different story, since you can just tell it to use the default AdLib Gold drivers from Windows and it shows up straight away. You still don't get any Windows volume adjustment, since that would require the card to have Windows Sound System support, which it does not, but you can at least use the OPL3 as a MIDI playback device in Windows. So yeah, Canyon.mid sounds pretty great. All this raises the question, who exactly is this card for? At $80, it still costs a whole lot less than an original AdLib card, that's for sure, but it's also on par with or costlier than a good Sound Blaster 16 or any number of common clones from back in the day that'll be more useful to more DOS games. And as cool as these surround sound possibilities are in theory, it's not much of a selling point right now since nothing supports it yet. So I guess the Resound OPL3 is made for full-time PC geeks like me who just like to cram fresh new homebrew cards and slots and see what happens. And I'll admit, it's been a blast to screw around with for me, even with its technical setbacks and quirks. Stuff like this is just straight up cool in my mind, and it's very close to being a fantastic OPL3 based card. And as far as support for the original AdLib goes with OPL2, this is the nicest I've ever heard just because of how clean it is. So if you want a dedicated OPL2 card that just happens to have some other stuff added, this is a great choice. But at the moment, it'll be sitting around while I wait for greater software and game support, especially in DOS. And if you enjoyed this look at a custom-made retro device, then let me know. I've got actually quite a few more of these things to cover that I haven't yet. In the meantime, though, there are plenty of other videos on my channel, and new ones coming every Monday and Friday here on LGR. And as always, thank you very much for watching.